because we have to come and understand we are our children's marriage preparation. So it's the things that they're seeing in the home in their 18, 20, 25 years of being in that home, that they're like a tape recorder, and they're just taking that information in. So when they grow up and get married, they just press play, and they start reliving what it is that they've seen. I would say that if you're married in a Catholic church, and the priest or deacon who celebrated your nuptial mass, he used this little book called The Marriage Rite. And there's a series of questions that he asks that you say "I do" to. That third question is a two-part question. First part being, will you openly or lovingly accept children in this marriage relationship? And the second part, and will you teach these children the ways of the Lord and the ways of His church? And so what that means is that we have a responsibility. Not only do we have a responsibility, we have a responsibility that we're going to have to answer to God too. Greg, how well did you teach my children my ways and ways of my church? Well, God, I really didn't have time because, Julie was working out. She was never there to help. I don't care about that. How well or how poor did you teach my children my ways and my ways of the church? And so, again, we have that responsibility. We've been given that charge, and it's echoed again in the baptism as well, that we have to teach our children not only God's ways and the ways of His church and everything, but especially in this beautiful sacrament called marriage, because it's what we're doing that's going to demonstrate to them what marriage looks like.
Responsibility never ends.
Absolutely. Oh,
No.
yeah. They absolutely.
No, we always say the
absolutely.
26-year-old is sometimes harder to take care of than the 3-year-old.
And they do come back home, too.
Yes, exactly.
Found that out as well.
Yes.
In your travels, have you found that the parishioners are actually getting more involved in the marriage ministries
Yes.
that parishes? Because we've struggled here. We have almost 2,000 families, and quite often, an event like this, we might draw 50 to 100 couples. And it seems like it should be a lot more than that. 10% would be pushing 200 couples.
Yeah.
Is it just us?
No, it's getting better. If you're saying, is it just you based on tonight or just in general?
Just in general.
Yeah, it varies, and a lot of times, of course, it depends on the night. People are busy, but again, we are finding that people are becoming more serious about what they're doing. We've been doing this now for 14 and a half years, and there's so many years where we just want to stop because we're not getting support from the church or our pastors, even our pastor in our home church for the longest. But now I think people are really coming to realize not only the issues they're having themselves, but again, I could pick you guys out, and I'm sure you can name 2 or 3 couples that you know that are experiencing difficulties right now. And it's all around us. And so the society and the world, if you will, has kind of stepped up its game in terms of attacking marriage. And people are tired, like the kids in Arizona. I mean, literally, they were in tears. What can we do to help my parents? What can we do so that we don't become like my parents? And so people are looking for answers now, so they are coming out, they're getting more involved. Yes,
One of the things, too, real quick, is we do need to do a better job as church, though, because a lot of times we haven't heard it for years. We think the I do at the altar should just take us through till death do us part, because we've never done anything at the parish level. Marriage encounter, awesome. But at the parish level, that's when our lives changed, and we saw the banners going on Stewardship Sunday, and there was a banner for everything, even for coffee and donut ministry, but nothing for marriage. That's when we were like, we've got to do something.
And let me clarify that.
good.
And when we say that, church, we're talking to those of you who said,
yes.
I do. The priests have their hands full. And whenever we're doing talks or workshops, people come back and say, well, how come the priests or how come the bishops? It's like, it's not about the priests or bishops. It's about you. You're the one who said, I do to the sacrament. Why don't you stand up? Why don't you go back and learn what marriage should be? And then in turn, reach out to our fellow brothers and sisters and help them learn the way as well. And so again, it's not about the priests and bishops. It's about us. What do we choose to do? Because we are the church.
And one of the things real quick, and I know you may be doing this already, but I know it's about the personal invitation. People don't read bulletins. People don't look at flyers running out of the church. It's about personally inviting somebody in their face to say, will you come with us to a marriage event? And then go pick them up and bring them here in a bus. And one of the things I'll tell you, which is so cool, in Kentucky, a dear friend of ours who's with the Fathers of Mercy, brand new priest for a year, he's been a priest, in farm town. He drove to every single house, and he got out, knocked on the door, and he said, Ken, are you coming? And he said, no, Father, I've got it. He said, I don't care about your crops. You need to come work on your marriage. We had 75 couples in the middle of nowhere, Kentucky, because the priest cared enough. So all of us have got to take that kind of initiative to say, you know what, there's nothing else more important right now than your marriage. Because that's God's calling a bunch of us, and that's why y'all are here tonight. We have to go and be light in the darkness. Because as you know, and I don't know about so much here, but it is dark. We are in a dark world, but light shines furthest in the darkness. Each one of you, by being here, now have the light. Is my marriage on fire? Because now you got to go and start spreading the fire other places, because that's when it starts to grow. Again, it's not about us. It's about now you going and sharing what you heard tonight with somebody else and giving hope and teaching couples how to love. We don't know how, but we got to start taking advantage of.
In your counseling, what are you doing to help couples with unemployment and just with the economy the way it is, and trying to get them back on track and support one another as far as getting a new job and getting out there and working and not giving up?
Yeah. Not a lot in that specific area per se, but a lot of what we do in our discipling, I call it discipling because we're not licensed therapists, but is again allowing couples, first of all, to come to understand intellectually what the church teaches, but then practically how to put that together. And once they get the marriage where it needs to be, they're able to withstand a lot of different things. They're able to be that helpmate, to be there to continue to offer support and encouragement and things of that nature. So we work with it from the internal, from a spiritual standpoint, and growing the heart of the marriage relationship to be able to kind of take on some of those other things. And we do work in our community to identify different places to refer them out to when they get to those areas. But again, specifically in those areas, we don't really focus on that, other than the fact of teaching them how to be there to give hope to each other.
How do you give this message to individuals that are so secularized that when you try and bring up God in your marriage or prayer in your marriage, they look like you got three heads?
Mm-hmm.
I have several individuals who work that I talk to on a continuous basis. Oh, my wife this, oh, my husband that. And it's like, okay, would you like to go to a marriage encounter weekend? Well, what's that? Well, you talk about communication, talk about relationship with God. Oh, no. It's like, how do you deliver that message to them that what you're doing isn't working? Here's a better way, but they just don't want to.
You keep planting the seed. There's this old adage that says that how does it go? The teacher will never appear until the student's ready to learn. And so you keep dropping those seeds, because there's another prayer, the Romero prayer, and a lot of times it's been called the catechist prayer. And in that prayer, that poem or the prayer, it teaches you that that's not our responsibility. Our responsibility is to be evangelizers and plant the seeds. What they do with it, that's between them and God. We just do the work. And it says something to the fact that, we're not the master builder. We're just the workers. And so we do the work, and that's not our concern. There's work that we do in ministry that we may never see the fruits of our labor. But again, that's not our concern. And we just plant the seed. We continue on. We evangelize. We do the things God calls us to do. And it's up to them. Even when we work with couples in our discipling, it's one of the reasons why I say that the success rate is so high, because when we begin, we ask three questions, the same three questions in this book. One, is this marriage relationship something you want and you're willing to do the things we ask you to do? Two, do you have the faith that Jesus Christ has the ability to redeem your marriage? Because it's not going to be you, it's going to be Christ. And we cite many examples in Scripture of the many miracles that Christ performed, and clearly demonstrates that it was not just Christ's ability. He's the God-man, he could do anything. But it was hinged upon the faith of that individual, so you have to believe. And then three, does God have your permission to come into your life? And again, because one of the greatest gifts God has given us is free will, and he won't violate that. So whatever we choose to do with it, he honors that, be it good or bad. And so if we want God, we have to make that conscious decision, say, I want you in my life. I choose you. I give you permission to come in. So many times those individuals have not been there. Now, sometimes what I simply say is that you continue to do what you're doing, and when you fall upon that hard time, come see me. Here's my card, because I know it's going to happen. In fact, even in those couples that we worked with, there's been 3 before that have said no to the God stuff, and when they went on. One guy in particular, about 6 months later, we did a phone call. I said, Grant, this is Chris. I said, hey, Chris. He said, I don't know if you remember. I said, I remember you well. What can I do for you? He said, well, about 6 months ago, I was in your office, and I said that I didn't want the God stuff, but I've been out, and we've been trying everything else to make our marriage work, and it's not working. I want to know if we can come back to you and get some more of that God stuff. And so again, at a point in time, we